Hello, everybody. Randy Patrick here. Welcome to Housing Bubble 2.0 News of the Week, or as I like to call it, another episode of As the Virus Turns Our Housing Market. I'm getting kind of tired of saying that, to be honest with you, because we're kind of in this holding pattern, and it looks like we got we're spiking up with the, COVID-19, I guess you could say, reported cases in many of the states, especially down here in the South. So, as other states reopen and even here in Florida. So it's just, I guess we're all getting tired of it, and we're all getting tired of what's going on. It's affecting, a lot of things these days. It affects income, people's lifestyles, jobs, school, whatever it is, real estate, of course. And I'm going to try to do something different now. So I'm going to, make, I'll call it shorter videos. Now, it's shorter for me. It may not be short for you, but short enough for me, on more individual subjects, and break them up in maybe some playlists to see how that goes. Because, again, I'm sure you're tired of listening to me for 35 minutes, and I'm getting tired of talking for 35 minutes too. But that means I got to be on the ball here and talk a little bit more, and I guess you could say a little more frequently about what's going on. And there's a lot going on in the news these days, especially in real estate. So as I say, I'm always putting the realism back in real estate. So what I like to do is get going on a few topics right now. But remember, this is Housing Bubble 2.0. So again, appreciate your views and comments and everything. And we're getting close to another, I guess you say, milestone on the channel. So I do appreciate that. And as well, if you're not already a subscriber, if you could please subscribe and help the channel grow, I would greatly appreciate that. So thank you. All right, moving on to the new scene here. I didn't talk about this. This happened about a week and a half ago, I think on the 18th. Actually, on the June 17th, it came out. So it boils down to the whole, I guess you could say, moratoriums that we have on evictions and foreclosure auctions. So FHFA extends the foreclosure moratorium to the end of August. Now, this is great if you are facing a foreclosure and you've got an upcoming sale, because FHFA, the government, essentially doesn't want people, number one, losing their homes, having to go out and find other living accommodation sort of during the pandemic, and now as it's flaring up again in different locations. Not the most ideal thing. So this really applies to government-backed loans, so loans issued by Fannie, Freddie, FHA, etc. So if you were scheduled for a foreclosure, during this time frame, you got a break here, which is kind of nice. This also extends to people who are, who are renting, and this is a little more of an undefined area, but a lot of the local counties and states are doing their own thing or defining things. But basically, what they're saying is, if they're also extending this to rental evictions. So if you're a renter or you have a tenant who has been affected by the pandemic, by COVID-19, and has lost income, lost job, whatever, technically, you really can't evict them until this moratorium has been lifted. They're urging you as a landlord to work with your tenants to see what's going on and see if you can put things together, you can help out, extend, whatever you can do. All right. So, and what we find is that, that has a different kind of impact as well too, which will manifest itself shortly. But essentially, this goes out until the end of August. So as I mentioned, this is and this actually is we're talking. This is discussed here on June 17th, and we've got a full month of July and a full month of August, plus the remainder of whatever happened, the half month of June here. So really, this is I think you could say a pretty good deal for people who are tenants who are having financial situations. And there certainly would be fear, apprehension, face the unknown, like am I going to get stimulus checks, am I going to get unemployment, am I going to get my job back, I don't know, and am I going to be homeless at the end of whatever month the moratorium is going to be lifted. So in this case, there is a bit of a reprieve, which should help a lot of people get back on track financially, and I guess you could say solidify some of their housing needs in the very near future. So a good thing here, but it does have impacts, and I think that's what I'm going to talk about right now. So there's always what I call the trickle down effect, and you have to be aware of that. So just if we want to go through the article here, basically, again, mortgages backed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac at least until August 31st. So at least basically says Well, that's for now, and there could be another opportunity to extend this moratorium even farther out into the year. So this will cause problems for a lot of people as this moves along. Again, the comments are, during the national health emergency, no one should worry about losing their home, said FHFA Director Mark Calabria, who oversees the two mortgage companies that back more than a half of the outstanding mortgages in the U.S. So, think about it. Fannie and Freddie back a ton of mortgages, and if we're putting people out with foreclosure auctions, that's going to be an issue, and as well with the evictions that are sort of running on the same scale, or I guess say same timing. That's people out in the street that they don't want to see during this pandemic, which again is nice. Okay, so people are catching a break here. Now, if you actually look, I have a little red arrow down there. It says the moratorium would primarily apply to the 2 million mortgages that were in default at the end of February. So let's sort of think about that right now. What are they saying? Well, it's a foreclosure moratorium, so which means if you're in, well, really the moratorium is on the auction sale. So that's the true moratorium. So if you actually had a foreclosure auctions scheduled, say, April, May, June, now July and August, if you actually had a hard, fast date that you were going to a foreclosure auction, which means you would have lost your home and you would have had to move out or actually be evicted, guess what? As I said, you got a break here. But please look at what the little arrow points to. The moratorium would primarily apply to the 2 million mortgages that were in default. So I think that's actually kind of an interesting number because they don't really talk about that. The number that we're really focused on and we're tracking is the forbearance numbers, and realize that this is, again, I want to be very crystal clear here, okay? The moratorium would apply to the 2 million mortgages that were in default at the end of February. So, end of February, about 2 million mortgages in default owned by Fannie and Freddie. That's a pretty substantial amount. That's not 50,000, 100,000, 300,000, whatever. That's 2 million. So for those of you who maybe aren't buying the fact that we have foreclosures going on behind the scenes and there's a lot of default that's been stacking up, that to me is a great point right there that basically says there's stuff happening, and stuff was happening prior to the pandemic, because when this was enacted, which was, I guess you could say, I believe March, it was like March 17th, I think, was the day when they enacted this, that they're going to put everything, they had moratoriums. Well, forbearance really hadn't come into play. So if you think about that, we already had 2 million mortgages that are in a default status here at the end of February. Now we have, just under 5 million, mortgages that are in forbearance. Now, under the 5 million, that kind of encompasses all the mortgages so far that we're reporting. This 2 million is just Fannie and Freddie. This doesn't talk about, they're not talking about other mortgages that were in default process or foreclosure process prior to the moratorium. So just keep that in mind. So, and the reason why I'm pointing this out is the fact that there were cracks in the housing market prior to the pandemic, starting. So this has been going on, but people don't really either believe it, don't want to know about it. It's tough to track. It's tough. It's a tough statistic to get your hands on. I'll be very upfront with you. But this is why this is important. And I guess for me, I can talk about stats all day, that as long as they're presented in the news media. But stuff like this really is impact information that's going to affect the marketplace, the housing market, and future price points and buying opportunities. So that's why I think that is an important piece of information. All right, let's go to the next slide here. So realize that this is on the national level, but each state can do their own thing. And what I mean by that is not every state has to align with FHFA guidelines. However, many do follow along. So, for example, in our state, in Florida, where I live, the governor basically, at the end of May, they basically, Governor DeSantis essentially extended the eviction and foreclosure moratorium to July 1st. So that's 1 month. Now, so if these are I guess you could say, so evictions are sort of going along with what the state or the county does, and if they're not necessarily government-backed. I guess you could say. Sorry. Let me be clear here. Okay. Really, it was rentals that he was extending, to be honest, like tenants, and there are still the odd foreclosure going on and going to auction sale, but they're not under FHA guidelines, etc. But a lot of the lenders have basically just fallen within that. So just want to make sure you're clear on that. So again, not every state, not everything lines up with FHFA, but many just follow along because they could say, well, the government has done it, so I'm going to follow along with that. There are many movements and proposals to extend these moratoriums out much longer, and some are saying to the end of the year. Large cities have no rent movements going on, or rent strikes or rent freezes, working through their local markets. I mean, New York City and Los Angeles metros have these issues going on right now. But remember, each location or metro is unique. So when things change, this is sort of when HUD, when Housing Urban Development and FHFA start talking about things, it's on a national level for mortgages that they're backing, and the states and the counties can sort of do their own things for stuff that's not backed by the government. So just please keep that in mind. So I know that was a little bit of a confusing dissertation there, but just again realize that just because you hear it on the government doesn't mean it applies to you. You got to find out whether it applies to you and what your local, state, and even maybe local county level is doing in this situation here. Now, how does this affect the housing market? This is really important because clearly rental evictions are stacking up. I know people who need to evict their tenants, and their hands are effectively tied. So landlords are effectively tied, and they can't do anything about it. And part of the problem with this sort of blanket eviction policy is the fact that there is no verification of financial stress on the tenant required. So you could just not pay and stick it to your landlord because there's a moratorium on evictions right now. And a lot of the we'll call it pushback or comments that we hear are things like, oh, the government says I don't have to pay. So, some tenants, and this is the problem. So you have tenants who legitimately can't pay their mortgage, pay their rent, and you have some that are choosing not to because my government says I don't have to, or the government says I don't have to, and therefore too bad. So they're taking advantage of it. So landlords will be behind 5 months. So if you think about this, right? If the moratorium is in effect, you've got April, May, June, July, and August. You've got 5 months of potential non-payment of rent. Don't like that, and that's tough for landlords. I mean, I can see a month or two, but if this, they got 5 months now, and if there's still the open window to continue this, like how long or how much should a landlord take it on the chin? Getting beat up here. Again, there's no guarantee that it's not extended again, so it could very well happen. As I said, the ma and pa casual landlords. I mean, the greatest concentration of properties in landlords' hands are the 1 to 2. Like I've got a rental property, I've got a couple rental properties. It's your small real estate investor, your mom and pop investor, your casual investor, and many of them do have financing on those properties, so they need that money to cover the mortgage. So they're going to take a beating. It's going to start. They'll start to miss mortgage payments. Some people, and I know this happening now, they'll become disenchanted with the experience of now having to provide, accommodation and, other things that go along. Like, for example, what happens if, what do you do when something, say a water heater blows up? Okay, you've got a tenant who hasn't paid you for 4 months and their water heater, craps out. What are you going to do? Are you going to actually fix that water heater, right? Just think about how this all works out. So, it's gonna be, people will become quickly and are disenchanted with this whole entire experience now. Many are going to want to liquidate and remove the issue. I know a lot. That's why we're working with a lot of investors now who are saying, I want to maybe get rid of some of my properties, and they want to cash hoard for the future. But I can see that some landlords are going to go, you know what? I'm just tired. I just want to sell because I don't need to deal with this anymore. And well, when that happens, the opportunity is what? Well, need to discount. Like, am I going to pay premium for your property right now? Absolutely not. So is there a chance that properties could be picked up on the cheap for a discount? Certainly would be if they need to sell. And guess what my first question is for someone who wants to sell a rental property? My first question is going to be, are your tenants current? Right? Because what I don't want to do is purchase your property and find out that, oh, you're a couple months behind. So there's this pattern's already there, and they're going to continue to be a few months behind. So that's going to be the question. And there could be now. So there could be discounts available. There will be discounts available. So if you've got deeper pockets and can pick up properties on the cheap from people, that you've got a great opportunity there. And I'm sure if you negotiate and say, well, listen, you're already in a non-payment situation. So when I inherit that, I'm going to be in a non-payment situation immediately. And it's really going to hurt. So I need some compensation in my purchase price to offset the fact that I'm not going to get any income. And there you go. So there's going to be, so this is again a trickle down effect here on the rental landlord side of things. So that's, there's going to be, I put it this way, there's problems now. I know, because I see it with people, I see it with colleagues and friends that have rental properties and what's going on. So, it's not all rosy out there, regardless of what you think you may hear in the news media. All right. This will fuel the number of defaults that will come in the near future. All right. Because again, when we're talking about rent freezes and eviction moratoriums and stuff like that, well, there seems to be solutions in place or protections in place for the tenants, but there really is not much being discussed now for the landlords. So, I don't know how many landlords are able to go to their to the lender and say, hey, I need a forbearance agreement. Okay. But realize that forbearance boils down to, I have a pause on my mortgage payment. So if the landlord can get a pause, okay, they're at least not having to pay every month. But when the forbearance is over, guess what? They're in the same boat. They got to come up with the money. And so I guess I would look at it going, if your tenant's not paying you rent, they're not going to come up with 6 months worth of rent, when they're back at work. They can't. So therefore, you're not going to come up with 6 months worth of payments when your forbearance is over. So this just is going to be a little bit of a mess as time goes on, and this will certainly manifest itself. So what about so we just talked about the rental market and really how that kind of works and the effects. But what about foreclosures and foreclosure auctions? All right, that's what I want to talk to you about. So auctions are being postponed, and the auctions that were postponed really are, and this is again foreclosure sale auction. So in other words, your house your property's been through the foreclosure process, the judgment's been awarded against you, there's a sale date set, you're going to lose your home on that day. Okay, well, auctions were postponed for basically the part of March, April, May, June, July, and August. If again, FHFA guidelines, government-backed mortgages. So when you take a look at what they're saying, that if the government's got a ton of mortgages out there, and they're saying, hey, well, we had 2 million in default, so this is going to apply. This was applying, really before February, end of February, for people that were in this process and had sale dates set. So as a side note, other lenders have followed this guideline. There still are occasional foreclosure auctions squeaking through for things that aren't covered by either the government, that aren't backed by the government, or the individual lender is not, not following the same policy, which they don't have to. So, but some, and many have followed this guideline. Realize that the foreclosure case and process is slowed down. So while we do not have, active foreclosure auctions going on at the same time frame, the court systems, they're understaffed or they're working from home, etc. So a lot of the processing of the foreclosure cases that are pre-foreclosure, so pre-auction status, aren't really moving along hardly at all. So essentially, homeowners are getting a break here as well, which is good for them. However, once we'll call foreclosure moratorium has been lifted, we're going to see a huge surge. Okay, so basically, you had stuff that was already scheduled that was postponed, and you had stuff that would have finished up through their foreclosure process and been assigned a sale date somewhere in this past 5 months that are in sort of like a holds pattern as well too. So once the surge is lifted, okay, the foreclosure auctions will be reset. So typically what will happen is, say the surge is lifted, on we'll call it September the 1st. Well, then all these attorneys and all these lenders are going to go to the courts and whoever their process is, wherever their state, wherever they're located, they're going to basically say reset, 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 reset. So reset the foreclosure auction. So we're going to see a whack of auctions being reset 30 days and out from the when the date is lifted. So we're going to see a big surge here. There will be many, because there are many, and filing in cases will restart the process. So it's going to balloon and kind of bubble up here. So that is actually kind of interesting as far as I'm concerned, because this to me is the first wave that will hit us. All right. So this is going, like, everything is kind of like as I said, like a geyser or a volcano. Like, it's not erupted yet, but it's bubbling, and the pressures is getting larger and larger and increasing. And then bang, once everything gets reset, boom, it's all going to happen. So you're going to have lenders taking property back at the auction, third party bidders buying at the auction. There is opportunity to pick some stuff up right now, but so this is kind of like your first wave. Certainly more will be coming in towards end of the year and 2021, when a lot of the forbearance stuff has gone through its cycle. We're going to see a ton more happening there. So now, what I'm doing is I'm wanting to convey to you as to what I see, and I see as someone who's out in the field. I see as someone who's dealing with looking at the numbers and statistics, talking to homeowners in the situation, dealing with people who want to sell their homes, who have renters and things like that. And also, I do know a lot of real estate investors. I do know a lot of economists, attorneys, lobbyists, people that are involved in the they're involved in the housing industry on many different levels, and we talk, and and for me, that's my intel, and I'm getting, a lot of people are agreeing or saying this is what I think is going to happen, which is what I'm agreeing with as well too in the future. But also, what am I seeing in my emails these days? Okay, I'm getting tons of emails because I'm on lots of email lists, all right? And these are lists from people who have products and services in the real estate field, etc. So basically, I'm seeing real estate gurus are talking about the surge in volume of defaults on the way. So don't think it's just me here going, hey, I think we're going to have, a bunch of foreclosures. And of course, whoever is disagreeing with me, the naysayers, they're saying, well, you know what, that's not going to happen because mortgage rates are low as low as low. They've gone down again, and housing prices are going up. So everything is good. Don't worry. Well, you know what? You're in the minority now, okay? And for me, I'm pretty confident in what's going to happen, and I'm also confident in the people that I speak with and hang out with and talk to about this on a daily basis, because they're way smarter than I am. And a lot of these people have a lot of experience, and they buy a lot of properties and move a lot of property. And we see this stuff. We see it as feet in the street or boots in the ground in the field before it manifests itself into statistics, and we start seeing reports in the media about it. So to let you know, that's what's going on. So for me, every day I'm getting 10 or 12 emails for people saying loan default, foreclosure tsunami, things like that. So it's stacking up. People, the expectation is we're going to see a lot of this in the next little while. So there will be many opportunities to purchase discounted property in the future. But the whole thing is the majority will not be in the retail market. So if you think that a lot of these properties that are going to get foreclosed on are going to pop back out, in a week or two once they're foreclosed on as cheap properties in the MLS, that's not really how it works. And maybe we should have a discussion about how that's going to happen, how it rolls out, and how you can get involved and check this stuff out, and give yourself the opportunity to buy a primary residence or investment properties, etc. So realize that the majority of people who are doing this business, are in agreement that we're going to see a lot of stuff happening, behind the scenes, and there'll be a lot of opportunities that are available for cheaper property. We just got to be able to position it and get our hands on it. And there'll be headwinds trying to fight that, of course, but that's part of this game, is trying to beat them to it and position ourselves, to again, not have to overpay for something in today's housing market and economy. Simple as that. So having said that, again, just want to give you sort of an update here as to the foreclosure moratorium, because I just have been very busy and look at tons of deals right now. So I'm usually out in the field every day. So trying to catch up with sort of getting back to the news here. Again, this, I was saying it's going to be a shorter video. I don't think it's as short as I intended it to be, but, got to talk about these things. And, what I'm trying to do is, give you sort of the dirt that goes on in the marketplace, as opposed to, the headlines that we can interpret, either positively or negatively or incorrectly about the housing market. So thank you for your views, comments, likes, etc. If you want more information on how to participate in what I was talking about, there's my email on the screen. Send me an email. Please send me your phone number. The majority of you who send me emails do not put in your phone number, which means we got to go back and forth and get that information, schedule a call. So give me your phone number so I can text you and say, hey, can you talk? And then I can address your concerns and answer your questions and things like that. All right, guys, appreciate it. And we'll look forward to speaking with you a little bit later on.